Who's hungry? The deli's open. Hey guys, welcome back to Marco's Deli, where we're going to take a look at some of the NFL playoff games for you this weekend. I'm going to preview 3 of the games for you, give you some insight to the games, help you cash some tickets this weekend. Nice week last week here on the Sandwich Shop video as we went 3-1 with the selections, and that brings a record to 29 wins, 17 losses, and 2 pushes over the last 9 weeks. So definitely happy with the results. Let's see if we can keep it going. Let's start with the first game we're going to preview, and that is Washington at Detroit. Now, guys, this one here, this might look a little square to you, and I gave this one out on Bet on it, but I like this game over the total. Several reasons here. First of all, the Lions, nobody's been able to stop this team all year. 5 straight games, they've scored 31 or more points. Now, they're going to be playing a Washington team that if you look at last week's result against Tampa, and then you look at the last game Detroit played against Minnesota, both games went way under the totals. But I want to point a couple things out about that. One, Washington last week executed a great game plan. They were able to keep the Tampa Bay offense off the field with long, methodical drives. They ran 69 offensive plays in that game. One time they had a 17-play drive that ate up like 3/4 of the quarter. That limited the possessions for Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay then gave away one of those possessions where Baker Mayfield fumbled a snap. So Tampa Bay only had 44 plays in that game. And that's why you had a 23-20 game going way under the total. That won't happen here this week. And here's why. As I said, nobody has stopped Detroit. So they're going to score points. And Detroit's not going to settle for field goals. They're going to score touchdowns, which means Washington has to answer. They can't settle for field goals. Last week, that game against Tampa was always a 3-point, game, 1-possession game, 7 or 3. So you didn't have to force the issue. You could play field position. You could kick the field goal on 4th down instead of gambling and going for the touchdown. I don't see that happening this week. I look for Detroit to score, Washington to have to answer. And as in regards to that Detroit defense that played a super game against Minnesota, 2 things you have to remember. One, they were playing a division rival. Those games have a tendency to be played closer to the vest. They know their opponent. And 2, the biggest factor is you have a quarterback in Sam Darnold that was playing with an offensive line that didn't play very well, little banged up, and he was running for his life the entire game. And he is not a mobile quarterback. That's the complete opposite this week with Jaden Daniels. He is very mobile, and he can extend plays with his legs. I look for both teams to trade points all night long. I have this one going over 55.5. Now, before we get to the next 2 games, I just want to tell you, if you made it to this point of the video, I hope you're enjoying the video, and I'm going to ask you for a favor. It really helps out the channel. It takes a second. Just hit the thumbs up. Tell us if you like the video. We appreciate that. If you have a comment for me, leave it in the comment section. I come back here. I check out the comments. I'll answer any questions you guys have. I appreciate you guys in the interaction you guys give by hitting a thumbs up and leaving comments. Really does help the channel a lot. So I appreciate that with you guys. And if you want to make sure that you never miss one of these videos from me, hit the subscribe button. Costs you nothing to do it, and you'll be notified every time there is a new video available. And if you guys want to come on board and get my executive plays, the plays I give to my clients, my actual premium plays, you can come on board for a 7-day all-access package for just $77. That'll get you every play I have, including 5% plays. One 5% play is $35 by itself. We had one last week. It was the Houston Texans, an easy winner, and we're now 19-6 with our last 25 of those. If you use coupon code MD77, that's MD77, you'll get 7 days for $77. And guys, over the last 27 days, we're 39-22 with all of our plays for a profit of over $3,000 for our clients. So check that out if you want to come on board for a 7-day all access. Now, for the second game we're going to take a look at, we're going to look at the Rams in Philadelphia. Now, there's no question of the teams that won last week, the 6 games, the least impressive winner was the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's okay because that gets us line value this week. Philadelphia got the win. You know, they won 22-10. Final score looks better than it was. But remember, they only had 290 yards of total offense in that game. Jalen Hurts, very sluggish in the first half. He only had like 39 yards passing. Remember, he missed the final 3 games of the season. Also, I really do believe Philadelphia was under a lot of pressure last week. Remember, Coach Sirianni made the decision the last week of the season to not play Barkley, denying him the chance to set a record, the NFL rushing record in a single season, which has stood for 40 years. Now, there was mixed emotions about that. A lot of fans wanted to see Barkley get that, and he probably did the right thing, not risking injury. But then the fact that you didn't play him and he didn't get the opportunity to get the record, if you would have went out and lost last week, wow, the people in Philadelphia would have wanted to riot, denying Barkley that opportunity. So a lot of pressure on them last week to win, and I think they played a little tight. They'll play looser this week. Plus Jalen Hurts will be playing second week off of the injury. He should be better as well. Now, as far as the Rams go, yeah, they played a perfect game last week, and we were on the Rams. One of the reasons we were on the Rams is because I felt Minnesota was going to be in a tough spot coming off that loss against Detroit the final week of the season. Minnesota went from being the number 1 seed in home field advantage throughout to the 5 seed and having to go on the road to play. Now, they caught a break where they didn't have to go to LA, but still, they weren't at home. They had to play in Arizona because the game got moved. The other part of that game for the Rams where they caught a big break is the defense played well, and it should have. 2 reasons. When they prepared the game plan for the Minnesota Vikings, it was basically like looking in the mirror. Why? Well, Coach O'Connell for Minnesota, he was an assistant for Sean McVay before he took the Minnesota job. So it was like McVay was preparing a defense to stop his own offense. He knew what to do. Also, he had a quarterback in Sam Darnold that is not mobile at all. And he was able to put pressure. And whenever he dropped back in coverage, he didn't have to worry about Darnold tucking the ball and running. That's not the case this week. Obviously, when you look at Philadelphia and Hurts, that's a big concern. And I think Philadelphia gets the job done this week. And found a little stat for you, too, if you like stats. Here's one. Since the 2022 season, Philadelphia at home is a favorite of 7 points or less. They're 13-2 against the spread. That's a pretty powerful number. We'll go ahead. We'll take Philadelphia here. Look for them to get the win and the cover this weekend. And for the last one, guys, let's take a look at what I feel is obviously the best game of the weekend, and that's Baltimore and Buffalo. We got Baltimore. They're a 1-point favorite on the road. And I got to tell you, that's because right now Baltimore is everybody's darling. I always like to use the phrase during the course of the football season that who is the flavor of the week, the flavor of the month? Who's the team that everybody's touting? Well, right now it's Baltimore. Why? Because they've won 5 games in a row, and no one has scored more than 17 points in any one of those 5 games. But let's just pump the brakes a little bit. Let's take a look at those 5 wins. Those 5 wins came against the New York Giants, my Pittsburgh Steelers twice, and you heard me down the stretch how bad the Steelers were and how bad that offense was. And then they beat Houston and Cleveland. Only one of those 5 teams were a good team. That was Houston Texans. And when they beat the Texans, they caught Houston in that situation where they played 3 games in 11 days. So did Baltimore, don't get me wrong. But Houston's not an experienced team like Baltimore, and they were playing that 3 games in 11 days, had the Christmas scenario, and played Kansas City and everything else. It was just a bad spot for Houston playing that game. When you also look at this, people are going to go back to week number 4 when Baltimore crushed Buffalo 35-10. Now, that game was in Baltimore, and there's a few things I want to point out. If you remember, that was one of my 5% plays this season. I had Baltimore over Buffalo, and the reason for that was because Buffalo going into that game on week 4 was that flavor of the week. They were ready to punch those Super Bowl tickets for Buffalo. Why? Because they got off to a 3-0 start for the season. If you remember, Baltimore got off to a 1-2 start at the beginning of the season. Buffalo, 2 weeks before that, they played on a Thursday night against Miami, and they just steamrolled Miami 31-10 on Thursday Night Football. That was also the game that Tua got hurt. Then they come back the following Monday, so you get to see them on prime time again. They played Jacksonville and throttled Jacksonville 47-10. So Buffalo looked as good as a team could possibly look. And you know the saying I like to use, fat and sassy. Well, Buffalo couldn't go into Baltimore any more fat and sassy than they were after that 3-0 start. It was the perfect storm for a letdown by Buffalo, even though they were playing on Sunday Night Football and playing a good team in Baltimore. Baltimore took it to them in that one. Now, I think the roles are reversed. Everybody is overvaluing Baltimore, and they're not giving Buffalo the credit that they deserve. This is a Buffalo team that's 10-1 to finish the season. Yeah, I know they're actually 10-2. I am not counting the last game of the season when they had nothing to play for, and Josh Allen just got a cameo appearance to keep his Iron Man record of consecutive starts going. The starters didn't get any playing time in that one. The 11 previous games to that, 10-1 were the Buffalo Bills. And that one loss, by the way, that was a game we had as well. We had the Rams in that game. Why? Because Buffalo was coming off of back-to-back big games. They played Kansas City 2 weeks before that, beat Kansas City in a monster revenge game, and then they played the following Sunday Night Football. Remember the blizzard? Remember that beatdown of the 49ers? Remember how Buffalo was all fun and games? Everybody was hooping it up on the sidelines. You had players doing snow angels in the blizzard. Yeah, then they had to go to LA and play. Now, granted, the Rams are not a team that you should look past, but you know who they played after the Rams? The Detroit Lions. That was a sandwich spot. So throw out that only loss. I think they bounce back here. They get this game. They beat Baltimore. They get their revenge. And to me, the wrong team is favored. This is an overreaction from the public to Baltimore's 5-game winning streak, which I think is counterfeit. And that 11-1 record down the stretch, 10 of those wins, Buffalo scored 30 in those last 10 wins, they scored 30 or more in 9 of the 10 games. I'll go ahead. I'll take Buffalo in this one on the final game of the weekend for the divisional round of the playoffs. Again, guys, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Enjoy doing these videos and helping you guys. I hope you enjoy them as well. And if you like them, like I said, do me that favor, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and interact with me on YouTube. Leave me a comment. I appreciate that and like talking with you guys. Even if you're just dropping in, tell me where you're from. I like to see where everybody is at and how far we reach across the U.S. and outside of the country nationwide on YouTube. Until next week's sandwich shop, the deli is open. Let's have some meaty sandwiches and cash some tickets this week, guys. I will talk to you next week here on Marco's Deli.